So I'm going to show you how I create paints from pigments. So I've got my watercolor base. This is 1 teaspoon of honey mixed with 9 teaspoons of gum arabic. I've got some French turquoise here because I need to top off my half pan here. And I have some glycerin. I have some measuring tools. And I have some half pans, and I have my muller, which I will use to grind the paint down, and I also just have a little paint spatula. So because I'm creating pure pigment, I'm just going to make a little bit of it. I also do write down the measurements before I make anything. This one I've made several times. So I always like to start just with my palette knife, just to blend things together gently. Now some pigments, when you make them, there's a lot more grit to them, and they're a lot more, they're not quite so soft, so that when they dry very, very hard. So see what I'm doing before I use my muller here? I want to actually incorporate all of the powder because it gives me a good idea if I need more my watercolor base or not. I'm just going to add a little drop of glycerin. This is just regular vegetable glycerin. I'm going to take my muller and I'm going to actually just make sure that all of this pigment is finely ground in. It also gives me an idea if I need to add any more watercolor base. And you probably can't see it on camera, but as I'm actually doing this, I can actually see more green coming out of the pigment. So some pigment colors take a lot longer before they start to feel smooth, and some take a short amount of time. I find that any of the more earthy colors like the raw umber or the burnt sienna or the raw sienna, those ones seem to really feel like dirt when you're mulling them. So you really want to mull them until it feels nice and smooth. So again, it's just a back and forth process. I'm only making a very small amount. I usually will make more pigment in one sitting, but I just needed to top up one of the pans that I had actually made. So I'm only making a small amount because as this dries in the pan, it will shrink. The usually like to take my Muller and drag it over and listen for what it sounds like. Just want to make sure that all of that pigment is really ground finely in. So it just makes the color deeper and richer. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. This is one color that doesn't take quite so long to grind. Just filling this one up to the top. Now, the pigments that I do use are non-toxic, and I simply wear gloves because some of these do stain quite a bit your hands, so it's more of that. And I always like to start with my pans being slightly filled, not fully filled, so that they can dry in layers. Right. Show you what this looks like. And unfortunately, there is always some waste, because you can never fully scrape everything up. There you have some French turquoise watercolor.